Describe the intensification of conflict around the world that eventually culminated with World War I.
Well, militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism all led to some of this conflict. Great Britain and Germany were kind of competing for the biggest navy, while Germany was also had the largest military in the world at that time. Some of the alliances, like the Triple Entente, so like Great Britain, France, and Russia, were together. And so if one thing happened to one of them, the others would back them up. Then imperialism, um, if one country they really wanted to take over the smaller, weaker countries to have more land for themselves, and that leads to like the nationalism to where they have a strong pride and they want the best for their country. And so this leads to the Balkan Peninsula, where the Slavic people they wanted to have their own countries in that area for each individual group, but Germany wanted a railway through the Balkan Peninsula to the Ottoman Empire, which was they were in alliance kind of at that time, and but Russia wanted to have that land because they were Slavic too. So that kind of led to a group called the Black Hand to go and eventually kill Franz Ferdinand, and that started the war.
What conflicts forced the U.S. to abandon its policy of neutrality?
Well, the Lusitania was sunken, and that had a few hundred American passengers, and so that kind of angered the United States. And the British blockade really prevented the United States from getting any goods to really anybody. So like the Germans were starving, and they were just kind of the United States at that time was just kind of supplying everybody kind of food and water and stuff they needed because they were neutral. And but then the Germans did two things. They started sinking all ships in the international waters, and the Zimmerman note they influenced Mexico to try to start war with the United States and said that if they do this, then after the war, Germany would allow the Mexicans to get like the Arizona and Texas territories back that they lost from the war 100 years ago.
How did the U.S. mobilize a large army and navy quickly in order to help the Allies achieve victory?
They got a bigger army through the Selective Service Act, which men had to register with the government, and they were randomly selected in order to go fight in Europe. And that was about 3 million men right there were selected for the army to go. And the Navy, they just kind of like did the Selective Service Act, and they kind of influenced mass production with building ships and everything, so you had a lot of supplies and stuff for the men that went over in the Navy.
Discuss the collapse of Germany that led to its surrender.
Well, Austria-Hungary surrendered, and so that same day, all the Germans kind of mutinied and set up these revolutionary councils, and then eventually the Kaiser stepped down from the throne, and it led to their collapse.
Explain how World War I spurred social, political, and economic changes in the U.S.
Some of the social changes would be like the war bonds and propaganda. So people would buy war bonds, and with the propaganda, it would influence them to be like in favor of the war. And also, people started rationing their food. And the economic changes would be like the government gave Wilson basically total control over the economy just during the wartime. And a lot of women had to be in the workforce because their husbands would be overseas. And some of the political was just like a whole lot of anti-German things just because Germany was the great power that the United States were eventually against. And the Espionage and Sedition Acts were there, and like you'd get fined if you were against the war effort.
Discuss what you think the impact will be due to economic changes in the U.S. during World War I.
I think women will demand that they have rights, and so they'll eventually get equal rights in the workplace, the right to vote, and just be able to actually work at jobs other than just like a secretary or office jobs or stay-at-home mom.
Discuss what specifically President Wilson tried to accomplish through his 14-point plan.
Through the 14-point plan, Wilson just wants Germany not to have a lot of reparations and prevent another war and keep peace, as you saw by him suggesting the League of Nations.
Why did European leaders oppose Wilson's peace plan?
The European leaders opposed Wilson's peace plan because they wanted Germany to pay for the war that they started.
Discuss the issues Wilson ran into while trying to get the Treaty of Versailles ratified in the United States.
Some people said that the treaty was too harsh on Germany, or it set bad boundaries. For like Germany, it was kind of always above Poland, but now the new boundaries kind of say that like Poland was above Germany, and it said that people said that the treaty would injure U.S. and Europe because the Europe would be such in bad shape and the U.S. wouldn't be able to trade with them, and some people also said that the treaty was like selling out to imperialism.
In one word, describe World War One and explain why you choose that word.
My word would be unnecessary because all the conflicts that really started World War One, they weren't resolved, and it led to World War Two.